Good day to you wherever you are in the world, and thank you so much for joining us today for this special live conversation. My name is Julia Maryanska, and I'm one of the three filmmakers from the Village of Lovers, and this is our ReCulture live session. My film team and I host these kinds of conversations that bring alternative paradigm perspectives and peace talks. And today I'm really honored to be able to host Rotem, Levin, and Osama Iliwat. And these two men, I met them just a couple weeks ago when they were passing through my town in Northern California on a tour. And as far as I understand, the two of you have been now touring, right, for 10 months, maybe? And it was very moving to hear your personal stories and your visions for peace. And I felt immediately inspired to host you and make an opportunity for you to share your message farther. And I know typically you're in front of a live audience. So we are experimenting in Zoom land today. And I trust just the same that the same quality of your hearts that I felt in the room will come through because, yeah, you are devoted to your message. So I wanted to just briefly say hello. We are recording this session. So all who registered will have a recording. And I will start by reading the biographies of our guests today. Osama Iliwat was born in Jerusalem, where his family is originally from, and was displaced, like so many Palestinians around the world, after the War of '67. He grew up in Jericho. He has been in the peace world for more than 15 years and co-founder of Visit Palestine. He has dedicated his life to nonviolent resistance, working with different organizations such as Sulha Peace Project and Interfaith Encounter Association, appearing in several documentaries, including Objector and The Other, and regularly speaking on peace building at organizations and the peace world with his collective liberation perspective, opting for peaceful resistance. When Osama is not working for peace internationally, he helps his community of Jericho and other communities in the West Bank, supporting them to stay on their land and rebuilding homes, parks, and educating. He also offers political education tours in the West Bank and goes to schools to talk with Palestinians and Israelis about, amongst other things, nonviolent resistance and communication. Osama taught himself Hebrew in order to connect on the land. He also does trauma and healing work to support people on the land. Osama was a speaker for TEDx Jaffa at the beginning of his peace journey and featured in many television interviews. Okay, and Rotem was born and raised in Ain Vered. Is that how you pronounce it? After his military service, he participated in a transformational intensive dialogue program in Germany, where he got to know Palestinians on a personal and intimate level. This instigated a change in perspective on the story he was born and raised with. After this experience, he started organizing similar programs in Aqaba, Jordan, where he offered the experience to other post-military Israelis and for Palestinians and Israeli medical workers. He is a committed activist and doctor by profession. While studying medicine at Ben Gurion University, he dedicated himself to learning Arabic and building solidarity relationships with Palestinians. He also worked with different peace organizations. Rotem moved to Beit Jala, a Palestinian village in the West Bank. in 2020 in order to get to know his neighbors, reality of living under military occupation, understand their culture, and improve his Arabic. When Rotem is not giving conferences for peace internationally, he invests most of his time creating healing spaces for Israelis and Palestinians on the land. So I invite everybody to just take a breath and open your hearts and your ears to listening to our guests today. The way this will go is we'll have about an hour for the two of you to share. And maybe in that, I might jump in and ask a question or bring in something, but I know the two of you have much to say. And then we're going to open it up for questions. Yeah? And what do you think, you guys? Should I read the poem to begin? How do you feel? Or should we go right in? And you're muted, so you need to unmute.
I want to say thank you, Julia, for inviting us and creating this space for us to share our vision, to share our stories, and to reach more people. Yeah. I mean, it's up to you if you want to read the poem or not. For us, we are ready to start and really interested in listening to people and what they have to say after listening to our stories. And we are here to say that Rotem and I, since we decided to do this kind of tour, we decided on 16th of October to do tour for 2 weeks. We used to give a lot of talks before on the land for Israelis and Palestinians. And since 16th of October, we decided to travel around the world and share our message that we people have realities on the ground and we have to talk about it. And these realities are not helping any of us to live normally on the land. And that's how we decided to do this work. And we share our stories, our narratives, our fears, our beliefs, actually. And we represent ourselves. We don't represent everyone on the ground. We represent ourselves. We represent our solutions. We represent how we feel. So we are not here to tell you who's right and who's wrong, or which side we have to stand or support. We are here to say all sides matter and every human life matter. And the only way is to understand the situation and to work together to change it. Yeah. So we share our personal stories. Maybe Rotem want to start.
So, hey everyone. So I was born in a small village in Israel. It's not far from Tel Aviv. And as a child, as a teenager, I didn't know Palestinians. There were no Palestinians around me. Not in my village, not in my school. And I remember maybe the first time I heard about Palestinians, I was 10 years old, second intifada, suicide attacks every week. And I'm terrified. As a child, I don't understand what is going on. How is it possible that there are human beings who are willing to kill themselves in order to kill me? And because they don't teach us Arabic in the Israeli schools, I didn't understand a word in Arabic. And many times when I used to take the bus from place to place, if someone spoke Arabic next to me, I was scared because who knows what might happen. And yeah, many times I chose to leave the bus before the destination. And I think I started to understand what it means to be an Israeli through the annual ceremonies we hold all around the country. Every year, we have the Holocaust Memorial Day, and a week later, the National Memorial Day. And we invite the soldiers to participate in these ceremonies. And I remember as a child, I used to go to school and to see soldiers entering my school with full uniform and long weapons. And the teachers always used to welcome them with so much love and respect and appreciation. And it was some kind of a ritual for me. And it happened every year, the same ritual. That I remember at some point I started to internalize the fact that when I will be 18 years old, I will be a soldier. Basically, like anyone else, there were no exceptions for this. All my family were soldiers. All my teachers were soldiers. All my village were soldiers. So for me, the army, it was like maybe American college. Once you finish the high school, you go to the army like everyone else. I didn't back then think, or it haven't even crossed my mind that refusal is an option. I've never heard about someone who chose to refuse to go to the army. And yeah, then as a teenager, I remember my mom started to take me to her own ceremony because her cousin was killed as a soldier. And again, similar scenario. So we go this time to the graveyard, and soldiers from his commando unit coming to participate in the ceremony. And this time my mom is the one who is welcoming them with so much love and respect and appreciation. And again, every year, again and again, the same ritual. That I remember at some point as a teenager, I suddenly had this inner motivation. I want to go and serve in the same unit as the cousin of my mom who was killed. His name was Itamar. I was told by my family that he was a hero. He sacrificed his life while protecting us, so we will be safe in our homeland. And yeah, I believe like any other teenager, I wanted to be appreciated, to be loved, to feel that I'm part of my collective. And for me, this was the only way to be part of my collective, the only collective I knew back then. And at the age of 17, we traveled to Poland with the school, like most of the Israeli Jewish students, to see the death camps and to learn about the Holocaust. And it was a very intense experience. I remember there were Israeli flags everywhere. And the conclusion was that the solution for European anti-Semitism is Jewish nationality. It was very clear that this is the only way to protect ourselves, and we cannot trust anyone to do it. We have to do it ourselves. And if we'll not go as a collective, all of us, to serve in the military the next year when we will be 18 years old, who knows what might happen? Maybe even history might repeat itself. So I came back from Germany even more motivated to go and to serve in the army, to protect my people, to be the one who is sacrificing for the collective. And I joined, like many other Israeli teenagers, these groups who are supposed to prepare the teenagers to the army service, like physical and mental preparations. And at the age of 18, I was recruited to the same unit as Itamar, who was killed after a lot of effort. And I remember the reactions from everyone around me, all my friends, all my family, all my teachers were so supportive that I was convinced I'm doing the most important thing I can do in my life. It felt so good to feel the love, to feel the appreciation. And I didn't have second thoughts. On the contrary, I felt proud of myself. I managed to be accepted to this unit after so much effort. And yeah, I was as if like on the right path. This was the feeling. And then we had like 2 years of very intense army trainings in this unit. I still haven't seen one Palestinian. and I don't have any relationship to Palestinians. At the age of 20, after 2 years of training, my team was taken to a Palestinian village in the West Bank. And it was actually the first time I go to the West Bank, because my father always used to say, there is occupation in the West Bank, there are settlers there, and it's very dangerous for us Israeli Jews to go there. If the Palestinians will know that you are an Israeli, they might hurt you. So don't go there. And then at the middle of the night, a group of 15 full armed soldiers, we crossed the village by foot. When we reached the center of the village, the commander came to me and to another soldier and asked us to take the shock grenades and to throw them into one of the yards. And I remember I didn't think twice. I was so much focused on following the order, on being the best soldier I can, that I was so much in the moment. I threw the grenade, the shock grenade, there was a big boom. Then silence again, everyone is probably terrified inside the homes. And on the way back to the base, suddenly Nevo, the other soldier, called me. And he said, you know, Rotem, I think we shouldn't do such things. And I remember it caught me unprepared. I wasn't ready to hear it from him or from anyone. I was so much in the moment of being the best soldier I can. And yeah, actually I agreed, because there was no one there, no immediate danger. And it felt weird, like how come I didn't think about it myself? And I was confused. Suddenly the commander came, he heard us talking about it, and he said, guys, you're soldiers, you do what you're told to do, and this is the end of the conversation. I don't want to hear about it anymore. And because, we were in this elite unit, and we made a lot of effort to be accepted to this unit, and we wanted to stay with the team, because it became this kind of a family for us. Like, these 15 men were my closest people back then. And I closed my mouth and we didn't speak about it anymore. But somehow this night stayed at the back of my head here, and this was maybe the first crack in my perspective, understanding of what is happening. I felt maybe for the first time I'm not aligned with what I was doing. There is something bigger here, and I don't really understand it yet, but it felt not good to do what I was doing. And then later to be told not to speak about it anymore. A year later, I was released from the Israeli army after 3 years of mandatory service. Luckily, I didn't have to fight or to shoot anyone, and I wasn't traumatized. But I was very much programmed to be the best soldier. And somehow deep inside, I felt disconnected. I felt I want to start to ask questions. I want to somehow let go of this mindset of a soldier. And I felt that this process of unlearning or deprogramming my mind from a mindset of a soldier, it will not be possible to do it, to make it on the land, because in Israel, the military is above anything. Like, we have right wing, maybe we have left wing, not sure. And above them, we have the army. So no one dares to challenge the narrative of the army. Because of course we have the most moral army, and they do everything they can to protect human lives and human rights, and you know the story, I believe. This is what we are told, at least in high school. So I felt I will use my privileged passport like many other Israelis. Compared to the Palestinians, we can travel quite freely. And I will go away for a while and start to self-reflect about what is happening and all of that. And after a year, I came back to the land to start medical school. And just before going to university, I met a friend who told me that he's going to Germany to meet Palestinians from the West Bank. And I remember I was very excited because I've never imagined like I can meet these people. I was always told that these people are dangerous. You shouldn't go to the West Bank because if they know you're an Israeli, they might hurt you. But the only time I've been there, like 2 years earlier as a soldier, I was the one who was violent, not them. So yeah, I had many questions in my mind and I decided to join this program. And 11 years ago in Germany, I met a group of 20 Palestinians. Most of them were born and raised in refugee camps all around the West Bank. But I've never heard about refugee camps. What do you mean? So they explained to me, yeah, we were born in refugee camps, but our grandparents are originally from where you are, from inside Israel. They used to call it From 48. And during the establishment of the State of Israel, what is your independence is our Nakba. And again, I've never heard this word before, Nakba. So they explained to me that Nakba, it means catastrophe in Arabic. And during the Nakba, over 400 villages were destroyed completely. And 2/3 of the Palestinian population were expelled from their homes to refugee camps in Gaza, all around the West Bank, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and later all over the globe. And many Jewish refugees came over originally, like first from Europe and later from the Arab countries, and took over the homes that were not destroyed in Jerusalem, Haifa, Jaffa, and Karen, and other places. And yeah, I remember it was a bit too much. The gap between the narratives, the one I was raised about, my story, and the narrative or the story of the Palestinians, it was so huge that first I couldn't really believe, like how it didn't make sense. How come I had to go all the way to Germany at the age of 23 to learn about the narrative or the history of my homeland? How is it possible that I have never heard the word Nakba or refugee camps? But we sat there in Germany for 10 days, sharing from morning to evening our stories, emotions, fears, pain. And I connected to these people on a very human and intimate level. And I started to care for them. I have seen them crying so much. And I couldn't be indifferent to their suffering. So I realized there is something here, and I'm very ignorant about the story of my neighbors. So I started to read about the Nakba. And very early, I've learned that there is a law in Israel that prohibits schools from teaching or even mentioning this word. And if you're a teacher in the Israeli school system and you will insist to teach your students about the Nakba, you lose your job. And we have several examples of brave teachers who lost their jobs. And later I've learned that in theaters in Israel, you're not allowed to mention the Nakba on stage because then the theater will lose the funds from the government. And many, many other practices, strategies that Israel uses to basically erase the Palestinian narrative. Which makes sense because it's much easier to justify our violence as self-defense when there is no context to the violence of the other side. If Israelis will know that 70% of the people in Gaza are refugees, originally from 48, from inside Israel, it will be more difficult to dehumanize them and to say that they are animals and terrorists and all of that. Yeah, so it was very emotional. This whole experience, I was overwhelmed. And I started to self-reflect about my life. And I realized like, wow, I was celebrating my independence every year in Israel. We have festivals, parties, firework, barbecue. And suddenly my Palestinian friends are telling me, you know, we live next to you. We see you celebrate. But for us, we feel it's as if you celebrate our catastrophe. And it was very painful to realize this. And I came back to the land, trying to talk to my family, my friends about it. But unfortunately, people were very intimidated by this topic, became very defensive, and didn't have the emotional capacity to hold space for me. And yeah, I felt just like that, as if in one moment, once I bring this topic, there is no one there to listen. No one is interested, and I'm alone. And yeah, I was lucky maybe to meet Israeli and Palestinian activists who became my new support system, who understand that the first step to move towards change is by recognizing each other's humanity and acknowledging the reality on the ground and what has been happening on this land since 100 years. And without the acknowledgement, without taking responsibility, we cannot move forward toward the change and the correction, and hopefully one day reconciliation. And then I decided to move to live with my Palestinian friends in the West Bank. And of course, my family and most of my Israeli friends were convinced that I lost my mind. I don't know if you know, but in the entrance to every Palestinian town, village, city in the West Bank, there is a red sign saying that the entrance to Israeli Jews is illegal, dangerous, and the army cannot guarantee their safety if they go in. And I'm intentionally going into this place to live with my friends because I want to show my people that it's not right what they are saying, actually. That once I will recognize the reality of my neighbors, they will recognize mine. And this is what happened on a small scale. I lived there and I started to get to know more and more Palestinians. And I started to speak Arabic fluently. And suddenly I can take the bus from place to place. The bus is full of Palestinians. Only Arabic is heard. I'm not terrified as I was as a child because I understand no one is going to attack me. They're just speaking about daily life, like, I don't know, falafel. And suddenly, like, my whole nervous system is adjusting and I'm not as tense as before, just from being in an Arabic space. And then my whole perspective starting to change to shift, because I stopped seeing them as potential threats like I was raised to see them. I started seeing them as potential friends and colleagues and even lovers. And it gave me a lot of healing to feel that I'm reconnecting to this land in a much healthier way. And this time I'm not in a bubble of Hebrew speakers and the others, they are my enemy. Now I'm becoming part of the region somehow. And then this wall, now I'm on the other side of the wall. And this wall, I used to call it the security wall. This is how Israelis call it, because it's there, we are told, to protect us from the terrorists who come to bomb our buses. But suddenly my Palestinian friends are telling me, you know, they built the wall very close to our homes. This way, Israel confiscated all our olive trees. and we lost our historical income. Our ancestors used to live from these trees for hundreds of years, and now we are dependent on the Israeli system. And then when I want to go to the beach in the weekend, I can take my car. Because I'm Jewish, I can cross the checkpoint easily. And in 1 hour, I will be at the beach. But I cannot take my Palestinian friends with me because they are not citizens, they are not residents, they are stateless. They don't have freedom of movement in their homeland. And yeah, many times I chose to take them in, to sneak them in my car, to hide them, because they are 30, 35 years old and they've never seen the beach all their life. They live 1 hour from the beach and they've never seen it because they are not Jews. So I sneaked them with me many times, and then one time the soldiers caught us on the checkpoint. And we were taken to the police station. And in the police station, what happened is that my Palestinian friend was put in a small dark room, no telephone, no cigarettes, was interrogated for like all over the night. And I was waiting outside. I have my phone. Once they needed me, they asked me to come into the office, asked me a few questions, half an hour, and then I went outside again. And this is exactly, for me, this represents exactly the system on the land. This night, and yeah, I think as long as this system exists, we will not have peace. As long as one people live on top of the other, as long as one people have all the rights just because we are Jews and the other don't, we'll not have peace. If we want to make peace, the Israelis, we have to become part of this region. We have to create relationships. We have to break outside of these security cages that we are building around ourselves and being integrated into the region. Integration, relationship, trust, and of course, equality and freedom, because as long as someone is not equal and free, no one will be safe. So yeah, we have to change the paradigm. The current paradigm of peace by military force is taking us to the abyss. And yeah, I hope we'll wake up before it's too late. Thank you for listening. This was my story, and now Osama will take the mic.
Thank you, Rotem. Thank you. Welcome.
Do you want to take 1 minute, breathe, drink water before I start to speak? You are welcome.
Yeah, taking a breath.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I wanted us to breathe because, of course, when we hear a story and it doesn't fit our beliefs or the way we grew up with or our narrative, we get somehow defensive, and sometimes we put some shelters around us so we don't get hurt. We don't want to listen to more, but yeah, I think this time we are not in our comfortable places anymore, and we have to take extra steps because it's not like before. And yeah, I'm sharing my story not to show the world that I am a victim and I am the good side, but to talk about what's happening there and how this situation works on the land, so you have more information about how it works. And if we are interested in changing it, we need to know to understand it. So for me, I was born in East Jerusalem. As a kid, no one educated me anything about the conflict. I used to hear only stories from my grandmother about her village, which was destroyed and taken, and the springs and the fields and the olive trees and the festivals. And she used to say, then the Jews start to attack the village a few times, and then they told us you have to leave for a few days to protect yourself, and you will come back. And since then, we are not back. And usually, she used to share this with a lot of tears and fears. And I was always terrified of the Jewish people without knowing them. I haven't seen anything from Judaism more than my grandmother's stories. And after the stories of my family in 1967, they said every Israel opened the borders to them to go to Jordan. So they all went to Jordan. No one was allowed to come back after this because Israel closed the borders. My grandfather sneaked back from the Dead Sea area with his 12 children and his wife and his mom. And they succeeded to go back to Jericho, then to Jerusalem. When I was 8 years old, my father was working outside Jerusalem in Jericho for a few years. And there is a law in East Jerusalem for Arabs only. If any Arab live outside Jerusalem municipality borders more than 3 to 5 years, Israel can cancel his or her residency. And that's another kind of a transfer, like you are not allowed to renovate your houses. You are not allowed to build houses. You are not allowed to add rooms. And if your family grow and you move outside, even 20 minutes outside Jerusalem, this will risk your residency. So you will not be allowed to live in Jerusalem anymore. Sorry. That's how my father lost his residency. We moved to Jericho. For me, it wasn't a big deal to move 30 minutes away from Jerusalem. But that was the beginning of the first Intifada in the end of the 80s, where I started to go to school and I started to see soldiers. Soldiers in the street, soldiers on the other building, on the roof of the other building next to the school. First day I was terrified and I went back home and I told my mom that I don't want to go to this school. There are soldiers there with weapons. And she said, there are the Jews. They are the Jews. And like for me, it was the first image maybe for me to imagine how Jewish people look like by seeing these full-armed soldiers. And every time I used to go to school, students used to whistle. Sometimes older students used to muscle or throw stones at the soldiers, and then they target the school by tear gas. We as little kids used to run from the backyard with one of the teachers or by ourselves, carrying onions in our hand because they told us onions could protect you from the tear gas and it could help you. I was always with tears. I wasn't sure it's from the onions or the tear gas or the fears. But but after when I arrived home, my mom used also to hide me sometimes in the bathroom, take shower. So the soldiers don't come chase because they chase the students, so they don't come and arrest me. It's part of her mind. few months after, the army commander decided to close all the schools because we Palestinians live under military rule, so the army can make any decisions in our life. We all, everything in our life, we don't have civil system. We have to go to the army. Yeah, so they closed the schools, and it was nice, actually, for me as a student not to go to school, but every night they used to walk. Soldiers used to walk in the streets, like 6 soldiers from this side, 6 soldiers from this side, from place to place, neighborhood to neighborhood. And we used to hear stories. They enter to this house and they destroy all the furniture, and they took the eldest sons and they put them in one room and they beated them, and like all these stories every day. And sometimes Palestinian youth used to throw stones at them, and then they shoot and they run after them between the houses, between under the windows. Yeah, I used to be in my bed and not allowed to move, because if you turn the light on, the soldiers would come in. So my father was always asking us to stay silent and not to turn the light on. And we always also carry onion in our beds because we can smell the tear gas, even though my father tried to put a lot of tape on the windows many times, but we still can smell the tear gas. And yeah, these things continue like every day. One day they entered to our house and they took my father to clean the street after the demonstrations there. And when my father came back, I saw him. I saw marks on his body. He was beaten and he was abused, and for me, like, I think it was shifting moment where I felt that the Jewish people somehow break the strongest person in my life, the human that I supposed to feel security when he's around there, and now he's beaten and abused, and according to my mind by then, not by Israeli army, not by Israeli soldiers, not by occupation. And that's a mistake on our Palestinian side. We need to work on it, because Israel represents Judaism. We call them Jews. We don't even call them Israelis until you start to educate yourself what's the difference between Judaism and Zionism. And that most of the Palestinians don't really know. Yeah, and I wanted to do something. I felt like I am 14 now. I have to be strong. I have to defend my family. I started with friends. We don't have army or soldiers or special units. I started with friends to collect money. Like, it took us a few days. It took us, and we bought spray color. Like, yeah, and I jumped after my parents went to sleep. I jumped off of the house with 2 friends. Everyone came at the same time, and I wrote outside on the wall, "Free Palestine." And I remember I felt so happy to write this word, and I felt so happy to see it the day after, even though by then I don't think I know what is Palestine or where is Palestine. I wasn't fighting for Palestine. This whole Palestine thing, I was using it just to trigger this soldier who's making a lot, like scaring my sisters, my father, my family, my teachers, everyone. And for me, he represents Judaism. And if I say Palestine, it will trigger him. So I was doing this for some times, and I felt so proud. And then with my friends, we collected some shirts to make a Palestinian flag, which was taboo by then, and you can't raise it in our cities. Again, it wasn't representing anything of my beliefs. I was just trying to trigger them. And we made it, and we made flag, and it was like, even because we don't know how to make a flag, we make it upside down. We put the black on the bottom, not on the top. It just was something to represent what we believe or to trigger them. Yeah, and after putting the flag there, we get arrested, 3 of us, under a law called administrative detention. So we Palestinians because again, we live under military rules, unlike the settler who lives 5 minutes away from me, who has citizenship, civil rule, all the rights. Yeah. Even if my Hebrew is better than his, still have rights more than me. And they don't live under different law. It's a democratic law, because we're Israeli. If you are Jewish, no matter where you live, you are full citizen. If you are Palestinian, you take rights according to the place you live in, either inside Israel or in East Jerusalem or in West Bank or whatever. Yeah, so we went like administrative detention, and administrative detention means that the army commander can stop any Palestinian, arrest any Palestinian, man or woman, take them from their homes to jail from 1 day up to 3 years without a trial. And in Hebrew, it's called Me'atzar Minhali. And if we are very lucky and we will go to court, we will go to a court that it's called military court, where the army commander is the judge. And if you want to search more about this and to make sure that, you know, that's true or not true, there is Israeli documentary called, in Hebrew, Shilton HaChok. In English, they translate it to the laws in these parts. Yeah, and I want to say just, you know, in Israeli jails, you learn what it means to be Palestinian. You learn your story, you learn your narrative, you learn how to hate Israelis, and you learn how to hate Jews, and you learn how many massacres they have done to us. And like you get education from inside, from the Palestinian prisoners, to make you understand one side, which is your side. And I went out now with ideology that this land is mine and they have to leave it. I learned all these things inside the jail, and I went out throwing stones, trying to express myself in many ways until 1992-3. I started to hear about peace agreement, and Israel gonna give us our own country, and we will raise our flag and be free. A lot of people complained, you know, it's too 20% for land. For me, I said, I just want to feel free to go to play basketball after sunset. I just want to be free to go in the morning and run and not face soldiers and beat me up in the street. I want my brother I want to have playgrounds. I want to have normal life. I don't care how many lands and they are giving to us. I just wanted to be free. Yeah, and I did a lot of work to support this peace agreement, and I joined the Palestinian police for 4 years, 5 years. Yeah, and then I started to feel that it's not really working. I felt like, to be honest, I felt stupid, because like, how come they're gonna give us the land and they are building settlements every day, and the number of the settlers is raising up every day, and the settlers were 100,000 and they promised us to remove half of them, and now they are 650,000, and they are like building a new outpost, which is illegal according to the Israeli law, and they still have army to protect them, and services and public transportation and lands and water more than me. I don't have water to drink in my city. So yeah, it was very confusing to me, and I left the police and I didn't know what's the next step. 2010, 2001, I was in an internet cafe doing a search. Special units attacked this internet cafe. They want some people from there. I was like, I saw people dying, people bleeding in front of me in the internet cafe, and I was traumatized. I was there. I never seen people dying, bleeding in front of me. They were standing there, and we were handcuffed, blindfolded, and we were taken to an army base called Machane Nipo. It's like close to Jericho, where we were handcuffed, blindfolded for a few days outside in a basketball-like playground. Yeah, and I felt so bad. I felt broken. I felt my hands, I can't move them. And I felt like my life is not really worthy. It doesn't worth anything. I could have but just been shot by mistake here. And no one will even mention me. Maximum, they will say he's a terrorist. Maximum, if they really want to mention me. And I wasn't a terrorist, and I didn't do anything to terrify anyone. I was sitting, searching, looking for better future. And yeah, and I decided after then, if I'm dying, I will die as a hero, as a fighter. I will die and hurt them first. I will die defending myself, my home, my sisters, my family. Yeah, and I started to do a different kind, and I started to join the resistance, and I started to support him here and there, to support the fighters, giving them food, until I became one of them, where I lost a lot of my friends, and I was always believing revenge is the only way. In 2010, I ended up in a place where I met Jewish people as a normal people for first time in my life. They told me they are peace activists. I was so shocked, and because I don't accept any other narratives, and I used to believe I'm the only right one, and I'm the only victim, and everyone else is just making it up. And all these beliefs, I refused to sit with these Israelis, and I felt so mad to be in this peace circle. But when I listened to these Israelis, to what they have to say, for the first time in my life, I heard Israelis are mentioning my side of the story, are mentioning my pain, are making it seen and legal and real. They said, of course, we believe we have the right to live on our land. Of course, we have the right to be saved. Of course, this is the Jewish people, we were expelled and killed all around the world, and we need this safety place for us. But I don't think we have the right to discriminate other people and keep them under military rules and destroy their homes and keep them in a small, closed places. And when they complain, we beat them with iron fist, and then we call them terrorists. And this is not my Judaism, and that's not why I'm in this country. And if we agree with her or not, this is not the problem. For me, it was the first time in my life I have looked at a Jewish person or I have seen a Jewish person as someone is not scary. I have seen a Jewish person that someone I can accept and include in my life. I have seen someone I can talk to and I'm not scared of. Because Israel showed me weapons, they showed me jails, they showed me power, they showed me tanks, they showed me everything. And I wasn't really afraid of their power. For me, death was the only freedom, because I had no future and no past and no life. And after this, I was really surprised. How come I don't know these people? And I want to know more and more about these Israelis. The people who agree with me and the people who don't agree with me, just they are willing to listen to me, to listen to each other and talk about each other narratives, each other pain, each other fears, and try to heal together. And I created a group called Visit Palestine, and I started to bring Israelis to West Bank, to our cities, to show them what's going on there. Because, every time they hear this guy stab an Israeli soldier, he's a terrorist, and they all agree and accept, and to explain to them, you know what, this guy used to go to his city from this street, or his land is next to this settlement where he used to live most of his life, and now the The security of the settlement, even not the army, are preventing him and his kids to go to his land. And if he demonstrates, they will beat him up. And his son will go and throw stones, and his son will be killed and called terrorist, and someone who wants to kill all the Jews and want to send you to the beach, to the sea, and we hate them, and anti-Semitism, and all. That's not what's happening there. What's happening there, that there is a system discriminating people according to their faith. There is a system living on sword since 80 years, giving the rights to one certain kind of people, ignoring the needs and the humanity and the rights of the others. And they see in themselves the only victims, and they have the right to do all these things to other people. And if we are silent, we are okay. They will maybe give us another piece of bread. And if we scream, we either become anti-Semites or terrorists or whatever. And this is not right. We can share the land. We are willing to live and share the land. And we are sharing it. We are traveling every day together, meeting at the Dead Sea, at the checkpoints, at the junctions, at the traffic lights, inside Israel and outside in West Bank. But we don't share the same rights. We don't share the same schools yet. We don't share the same cities. We don't share the same public transportation. How are we going to accept each other? How are we going to become friends and neighbors and share the land together, as long as the settler next to me don't know my name, don't know my language, don't go to with my kid to the same school? And how I convince my child to accept them, while I am, for example, my child is studying law now, and since he was little, I'm taking him to my peace demonstrations, I'm taking him to meet Israelis, to be with Israelis. I want him to be a lawyer, I want him to be a player, I want him to be a dancer, I want him to be a singer. And every time he comes back from the university, 3, 4, 20 years old soldiers taking him out of the car, beating him up for 1 and 2 hours every time. How you ask me to convince this child to accept the existence of the Jewish people? What traumas he has in his life. And tomorrow, if he screams and he gets shot, he will be terrorist or hater. Yeah, and I just do this to explain to people what's going on, and to explain to them that we really can make it better for everyone. We need to fight together for the rights of each other, because no one is leaving, not the Israelis, not the Palestinians. This land have enough place for all of us. We need just to have enough place in our hearts to include each other. The land is big enough. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Osama. Maybe we can all take a breath and take a moment to look around the room, just notice yourself and your surroundings, and yeah, whatever, like what you said, Osama, some of our beliefs can be challenged with these stories. And let's take a moment now and yeah, remember we're in our bodies, and maybe just notice 3 objects in the room around you, kind of ground you in the present moment as well as you are taking the stories in. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. It's strong to be both of you. And also beautiful to see you both on the screen together. Yeah. So we have a little bit of 30 minutes now. And I want to be able to hear questions from the audience. And I'm going to start with a few from myself, because there's so much in what you shared, and also what has been moving in me since you shared also when you were in Sebastopol. And Osama, one thing I remember from your talk when you were here, you said a line that stuck with me. You said, "From the river to the sea, we need a therapy." And you have also devoted yourself to trauma healing, and I would love to hear more your perspective on how it's such a strong hold on humans, right? Like if they have inherited the trauma from the Holocaust or from the almost 100 years of Israeli state violence. How do you experience people working with trauma in a way that they can come through to this perspective you mentioned, to come to the place where they can imagine sharing, can imagine building relationship? What is your, yeah, is there anything you can share with us about that trauma?
Yeah, thank you, Julia, for this question. It's important, really very important. I just want people to understand that we in Palestine, growing up in this situation, my father was struggling to bring bread to feed us. Yeah, so we didn't really have space for trauma or for healing. I didn't know that I'm traumatized, as a child. It wasn't even part of my being that I'm traumatized, and all these fears and this violence is part, and I don't cry and I'm always tough is part of my trauma. Yeah, we don't know. That's our daily life. We all are traumatized somehow. Growing up, seeing soldiers running from place to place, from tear gas, hiding in my bed, it makes me violent with everything moving. And this kind of realities, I want people to understand. We can't force a trauma on people and call them names. There is difference between a child, like every child, they grew up in a refugee camp. What we know in life, in Jenin, all what they know how to work, how to eat, and they know that the Israeli army come in the night, kill their neighbor, this, that. I don't want to enter to details to tell me, yeah, there are fighters and not fighters. We are talking about how this affects people. And this child will live most of his life violence from his father, from his neighbors, from his uncles, from the Israeli army, from everyone. And in the end, we expect from him to live like someone who grew up in Switzerland with all the trauma healing and everything. We need to understand this is very important that people, especially the Bedouin kids, go now to West Bank. The Bedouin kids, 3, 4, 5 years old, they get attacked and beaten, and they see their parents get beaten in front of their eyes by settlers who are wearing kippah and weapon. They carry this trauma, and it's going through generations. For me, I knew about the trauma only when I started to meet Israelis, to be honest. And that's why I understand now, and I'm doing this work now, because I have seen the Israelis from inside. I did healing with them. I worked with them. I worked in a healing. I lived in their homes. I participated in their holidays, in their circles, and in their communities, and in a lot of things. And I know them from inside. I know that as a human beings, these people are not bad creatures. But I know this because I got the opportunity to go there, and I was sneaking every weekend illegally, taking the risk to go and meet my Israeli friends and to learn their language and to learn their culture. And after I learned that, helped me to heal a lot of my traumas, because a lot of my traumas was about the Israelis in general. And since I start to sleep and go and hug and meditate and love, and it shows me that the system should change, because these people are not my enemies. And the fears and the trauma used on them, they are using their post traumas against them to keep them in this circle and to keep them somehow justifying what they want justify in their normal life, because they are not the way they are trying to show to us. And now I want to fight them too, to them too. I want to fight for them. And it's difficult for me to see any mother crying her son, this one, or any father losing. And I feel the pain of both sides. And I don't know why people are fighting. What we are fighting over today? Who's more victim than the other? whose child is more holy than the other. I don't know why we all, Israelis, Palestinian, Jews, Muslim, Christians, don't go to streets and just say, stop this killing now, and then let's sit for the details and talk about it. I think we need a lot of trauma healing on the land, but we can't heal trauma while we're still living it. It needs to be post-trauma first in order to start working on it. And it's post-trauma on a new trauma, and now the biggest trauma, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I wonder also if the two of you can speak more about the more practical forms of nonviolent resistance that you practice, that you invite for others, the work you're doing across lines. Yeah, any kind of stories from your own experience, or what you would want others to consider embracing for themselves, as what can others do?
Okay, so I want to say something about trauma.
Yeah, please.
So I think on my side, like, I was told that the Holocaust is our collective trauma, but somehow when I reflect about it, I think that it's not very accurate. I think, yeah, maybe some people, like their grandparents came or ran away from the Holocaust or survivors, but big part of the society in Israel is not actually affected by the Holocaust. And I think the collective trauma of the Israelis is actually the indoctrination, which is Zionism. So we are being raised to believe that we cannot trust millions of people just because they are Arabs. And we are disconnecting from ourselves in this aspect, and it is being fed since a very young age. Don't trust, don't trust, don't trust. And for me, I started to feel that I'm actually dealing with this trauma once I started to create the relationships, once I may manage to get out of the bubble of the only Hebrew speakers bubble, and to get to know the others who are supposed to be dangerous for me. And suddenly the relationships healed this collective trauma. I think the Holocaust and the narrative of the Holocaust is being used, but this is not really what we have to heal. And this is what we see now. Like, we didn't really do the work. Like 8 years later, and we are still very traumatized or very reactive because we were indoctrinated to believe that we are different, that we cannot trust those who are not like us. And I think it's time to change the understanding what we are dealing with and what is the problem. The problem is not the Holocaust. The problem is the indoctrination not to trust anyone and to believe in military force as if it can guarantee us safety. And the only solution for me is relationships. Of course, we have to change the system, but we have to change the system and simultaneously work on changing the mindset. So this is that. And about the direct action. So for me, I think there are many ways to resist. And many times people in the movement, in the left, they like to fight each other over who is more right and who is more effective. I don't think we can really measure what is more effective. And I think it's time to stop fighting, because we're fighting here against a very powerful system. And if we will not build power, and we will not unite and we'll stop fighting over the details, I think we don't have time for these fights. So for me, I want people to ask themselves actually what is their call, what they feel they should do, and just do it. And we should all support each other and understand that we cannot really expect when the system will change. We have to put more and more pressure simultaneously in all ways together until at some point we will see the shift happening. But fighting over what is the right way to dismantle the system or to resist, I think we are losing so much energy. And they are united. They have the system for themselves to unite them, and we need to find ways to be together instead of fighting each other. What I do right now since 1 year is this. We used to do it since 7 years, but since October we decided to do it almost every day because we cannot sit and just follow the genocide. So yeah, we do like face-to-face talks and we meet thousands of people, and for me, I keep doing it because I feel the feedback is very motivating for me, at least, like the direct meeting with people and to see their eyes and to feel their energy and to feel the feedback. For me, it gives me a lot of energy to continue, and this is what I found sustainable for myself, and I think all of us should also focus on what's sustainable, because many times people choose strategies which are not sustainable, and then after a year or so they burn out. And because we cannot expect how long it will take, I think we should all focus on sustainable strategies and what also nourishes us. And yeah, we have education, awareness, direct actions, boycott, divestment, demonstrations, community, creating a network of people who can move together to do something.
Yeah, for me, I have only one. Can I have some rights? Yes. Yeah. For me, I will say the biggest challenge that people again are fighting over who's more victim and terrified without knowing what's going on. And especially here on the land in America, a lot of Palestinians and Jewish people. If Jewish people will fight for Israel, for example, without knowing what's going on, just out of defensive, and they want to kill us and they want to throw us over there. So they put the human on a side and they can justify the death of thousands of children because of what's in their mind, because of what they told them. For me, I'm not speaking as a victim, and I'm not saying I'm the only right one. If you want to start understanding, if you care about the humanity, if you care about humanism more than nationalism, go educate yourself. Educate yourself about what's going on. Don't take news and propagandas of anyone. It's easy. Go live in South Hebron. There are many Israeli peace organizations, Israeli Jews. They will take you to South Hebron. Go live 3 days. That's enough to understand what's going on. Go to Jordan Valley, live 3 days. That's enough to understand what's going on. It's not very complicated. There is a system discriminating people, and if you want to fight, you know what you should to know what are you fighting, and you should understand that occupation has nothing to do with Judaism, and being against occupation has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. Actually, occupation is only endangering and risking Judaism. And for me, if you want to do whatever the act you want to do of resistance, you have to understand two things. If you care about guaranteeing the security of the Jewish people, you should work on the freedom of the Palestinians. And if you want to work on the freedom of the Palestinians, you should work on trying to guarantee the safety of the Jewish people, because these two things work together. No one is safe until we all are free, and the other way around. So when you fight, when you do any fight, don't fight toward this side or that side. I think if you fight for justice with knowledge about what are you fighting against, you will find your way. I'm not smarter than anyone to tell them what's their way to go and fight.
Mhm. And there was a question in the chat of how do you all support yourselves financially and your families? And I would love to hear if you want to say more. And also, we put a link to your GoFundMe because, as I understand, you are offering and offering. And so, if there is if somebody here is feeling moved to support, there's the link. And maybe do you want to say something more about how do you sustain yourselves, and also spiritually, how do you sustain yourselves to do this?
Amazing. Yeah, so for me, I really grew up as a poor child most of my life. And recently, after working on a lot of healing, I healed this wound, and I believe that I receive what I deserve, and I always receive enough no matter what, and I'm always thankful. And when this war happened, we decided to leave everything, to leave the work, to leave the kids, to leave the house, to leave the family, and go to fight for everyone, because I felt that if I care about Israelis and Palestinians, if they are my friends, it's not about sitting in circles and hugging each other. It's about going now and fighting for each other, because this is the peak of the violence in our land, and it's going crazy, and I don't know what's gonna come after this war. But yeah, we decided to go fight in the way we believe in, without thinking about financials and about support and about money. We just went, we bought tickets from our own money, and we went out, and we were willing to risk it no matter what, because people are losing everything, and we are part of this struggle. Yeah, and we received a lot of love from people. They give us tickets and places to sleep, and they donate to us money, and yeah, and we use this money for our daily needs and for supporting our work. And we still need social media, and we still to build like websites, and we still a lot of support to make this voice louder. But we appreciate any kind of giving and donations that will help us to spread our message. And out of money, we need extra supports, not only money. We need people to come and sit and listen to us, to invite us, to communicate with us if they don't really, if there is something in the middle that triggers them, that they want to bring their voice. Everyone is welcome. We are willing to speak to anyone who's willing to open their hearts and to somehow to open their minds and their conscience to accept other narratives and other opinions. Yeah.
Thank you. And we have about 10 minutes left. We can push it after, but I would love to let anybody unmute yourself and ask a
You
question.
asked about emotional support. Yeah, we hug each other. Sometimes we cry together, we meditate together, and of course we visit a lot of friends. Like when we met, and yeah, with Eva and Dave and all our friends about, we received hugs and love and generosity that gives us the motivation to continue and keep moving with all the wounds.
Yeah.
And we are coming soon to receive more.
Okay, Hala, you have a question?
Yes, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much. It's great to see you again, Rotem. And I'm very impressed and happy to see all the efforts that you're doing. And I'm aware of other peace initiatives between Israelis and Palestinians. And I'm wondering if there's like some kind of coordination between all these efforts, because I believe that if I mean, they're kind of a small movement, but if we all kind of work together and kind of have a one front, it has a better impact. So I'm wondering if you are aware and if you are working together with other peace initiatives such as yours. Thank you.
Yala. Yeah, so there are collaborations, of course, between different organizations. What we do on the land, we meet pre-military groups of Israelis, and we do it through other organizations because we're not allowed to enter schools, and now we might be able to enter schools when we are going back through this another organization. So there are different, of course, ways to collaborate, and if you follow like the different peace organizations, you can see collaborations. And yeah, I think it's important, and at the same time, I think we need external help. I don't think that the people on the land can stop this. I think we are fighting now huge powers, and we need the international community to intervene and to take control over what is going on. I don't feel like this government is going to stop the war soon. And I don't feel that the people on the land have time to lose, and the people in Lebanon and in the region, it might escalate very quickly. So yeah, for me, I felt like I want to somehow help the international community to understand the urgency of what is happening. And yeah, I don't think the peace organizations on the land have the power to make it stop. I think we need a global movement internationally to build a coalition to basically force the government to stop the war, because for them it's an historical opportunity now. They feel this is the time to finish the job, what wasn't finished in 1948. And they say it very openly. And yeah, I want like everyone to understand how urgent it is, and that we are all complicit because it's one system. The system in the US, the system in Israel, it's one system. And we are funding it with our tax money, and it's time to unite and to see how we can stop our complicity and build an alternative structure that can actually serve life, not destruction.
Thank you. What I love about the two of you pairing together is your stand for relational building, that this relationship is going to be the core of the healing and reaching across divide and othering. And we can see history repeating itself. We can see also with your stories, it's not just about the 1 year, the last year of war in Gaza. It's so much bigger than this. So I'm appreciating also the way that you're pointing, all the ways you're pointing toward making relationships. And it's like micro macro, yeah? Like even just the two of you together here is a microcosm of what's possible. So thank you. We have a few more questions. Let's hear from Susan.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for your guidance and inspiration. And my question is on a micro level. I'm thinking of two friends. One is Israeli American, one is Lebanese American. They're both so traumatized and so heartbroken and so outraged, even though, you know, my Israeli friend has a history of being in a Palestinian-Israeli dialogue group, and my Lebanese friend has many Jewish friends. They're just so traumatized that it's almost impossible to talk about the situation with any kind of, for my Israeli friend, any criticism of what Israel is doing, even though she hates the government. She says, what else can we do? It's terrible, it's such a shame, but what else can we do? They want to destroy us. And my Lebanese friend is hates Israel and thinks it's an evil place. And I would appreciate some guidance on how to talk to them. I know I need to listen to them, but I would love to hear what your thoughts are about having this dialogue with my friends.
Yeah, I think that's our problem in this. They both are right, and we are like somehow two truths are fighting each other because they both have fears, and fears are always right, even if it doesn't make sense to me, even if I don't feel it. And most of my Israeli friends say the same thing, like what she said. Everyone wants to destroy us, because that's the whole topic of being Israeli. You need to keep thinking that everyone wants to kill you and destroy you. And that's why Hamas was, Bibi Netanyahu sent $15 million to Hamas 2 years ago while he was stopping the money of the Palestinian Authority. Because without Hamas, he can't keep uniting Israelis under fears and telling them everyone wants to kill you. So he supported them by themselves. And I understand this system. And yes, Israelis always think everyone wants to kill them, which is the whole Zionist concept. They want to kill us, we have to protect ourselves. The thing is, my problem is they don't usually say why they want to kill us. You know, they know that they want to kill them, but they never said why, and they never see beyond this. For example, we have 2 million Palestinians living inside Israel. 2 million Palestinians with Israeli citizenship. They don't want to kill Israelis every day. They don't carry weapons. They don't have tunnels. They don't have rockets. Why? Because they have rights. So when you give people rights, when you give people better life, when you give them what to lose, when you make their education and their life system better, they will accept your system somehow. The second thing is Israel is occupying West Bank, building settlements every day, killing from 200 to 300 Palestinians every year before this war. Yeah, and they are occupying part of Syria, and they are occupying part of Lebanon. And I know their reasons. They will say that we are just defending ourselves because from these places there are attacks. I know, like there's a lot of stories. At the same time, we want to kill them. The story is, I said it from the beginning, when you come and build settlement next to my house and prevent me of reaching the trees of my grandparents, or moving freely, or building a house, and you demolish my house, which was built because I don't have permission, and then you built a settlement against the international law and the Israeli law, I will fight. And when I will fight, you will use my fight as I want to kill all the Jewish people in the world. And my son will fight, and my grandson will fight, because they will carry this trauma and these feelings all the time. And this will serve the two stories. Serve the story of the Palestinians that Jews want to take everything and leave us by ourselves, and serve the story of the Jewish people that all Arabs hate us. Actually, when Iran launched rockets recently at Israel, the only country who defended Israel was Jordan. Yeah, Jordan sent air forces to stop the rockets before they reach Israel. So this idea of all the Arabs want to kill us, you have peace with Egypt, you didn't see any rocket falling from Egypt for 50 years. You have peace with Jordan, you don't see any rocket falling from Jordan for years. So peace is possible, and not everyone wants to kill you. It is this Israeli propaganda that wants to make people feel they are always good and everyone wants to kill them. And for the Lebanese and Palestinians and other people, I wish we have spaces where we built spaces where we allow these people to meet. Because for me, as someone who grew up there, I did not know a single Israeli in my whole life, more than the soldier who beat it or arrested me. And of course, I hated them most of my life because that's how they represent to me, not because they are good and I'm bad. or the other way around, because my fears meet their fears or their power, and we always fight. I think, yeah, just to bring them together, even if they talk about their things differently, seeing each other, looking at each other's eyes, crying together, it makes the hate melt somehow, because that's how I believe. And as I will repeat this poet for a Palestinian poem, his name is Mahmoud Darwish, who was expelled in the 70s from Deir al-Assad. And before he was expelled, he was in love with a Jewish woman. So she wrote him a letter asking when we are going to meet. He said after a year and the war. She asked, when will the war end? He said, the time we meet. So I think just people meeting each other, hugging each other, if we don't agree, that makes us recognize the humanity of each other. That's, you can't heal wound from the first shot. It takes time. It's a process.
So I know we're going a little over time, and I'm personally okay with it. I think if somebody needs to go, they can go, but we have 2 more hands raised. I would love to hear the questions. Are you guys okay to continue another few?
I'm afraid Jonathan and Dari, they look angry, but yes.
Okay. Let's, are we willing to find out?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, Dylan.
Okay, hi. I want to thank you both for sharing and being so open-hearted. Very beautiful. I guess kind of my question is, it's my understanding or what I've heard that prior to European colonization and prior to the fall of the Ottoman Empire, Christians, Jewish people, Muslims, all relatively lived in peace with one another in the Middle East. So is this generally your understanding of the history in the region? And if so, do you think kind of that understanding that this displaced anger between 2 groups of people really has its root in the colonization of the Middle East? Do you think that that understanding is kind of key to finding some sort of peace? Sorry if that was a bit rambly, but again, thank you both for your time.
Are you here? Yes.
So,
The 20%.
so I think the problem started when a political project had the idea to establish a national state for themselves in a new land without including the local indigenous communities in the project. Every group of refugees that go to a new land, first they start by learning the local language. Then they try to integrate into the region. They go to the local schools. They try to live together, to build relationships. The Zionists came to build a Jewish homeland for themselves. And because there was no Jewish majority, they realized they have to push as many Palestinians out as possible to have the Jewish majority, which will allow the establishment of a Jewish state. And there, in this idea, I think, started the conflict. And of course, we cannot go back in time, but it's important to understand what was the problem in order to solve it. And I think now the solution has to be integration. Israelis have to become part of this region by learning the language, by getting to know the culture, and by building relationships of trust. So we have to start to go to the same schools. We have to grow up together. We have to have friendships. This is the only way to guarantee safety. military force, it will never guarantee safety. At some point, Israel will lose one war and it will be a disaster. So if we want to avoid this disaster, we have to start working on creating relationship and simultaneously to change the system so everyone feel included. Like Osama just mentioned, 2 million Palestinians, they live inside Israel with citizenship. Of course, there are about the Israel between Jews and Palestinians, but the reality is that they don't attack Jews because they have future and they have hope and believe that they can live together with the Israelis. When you don't give people rights, they will fight for their rights and for their liberation. So we have a great example how to solve the conflict. Now it's just a matter of intention and to change the direction.
I wouldn't say it's not only about rights. Again, first I want to say that history is important, but as I always say, there is nothing called history. It's always his story, because it was written by certain people and mostly by masculine men. But I want to say that history is very important. To understand the concepts of the history, it's very important for me. But more important, how we can solve the future, how we can make the future better. Because talking in history, it will prevent us most of the time to look forward and to see better future. Who came here first? Your grandfather killed my grandfather. No, my grandfather came to ask him for half of his land and he refused, and then the Arabs came. It's amazing, but it's distracting us today. For me, for example, I don't believe no one have the right to come after 2,000 years and kick my grandmother from her house and tell her, God promised me your house. Yeah, this is something I don't accept it. But, and I understand Rotem and his brother and his older brother and his father and his kids will be born and raised on this land, on the land. And for them, it's their homeland. Why they are different than my kids? Why they are different than me? If I call it my homeland because I was born and raised there, and my father too, well, how it's not his? That's what I want us to understand, that this land is shareable. We don't own it, we belong to it. And we need to share the land, we need to share the rights, we need to share the humanity on the land the same way it happens everywhere in the world. That's the need of the human beings. It's not exception on the land that we need right. And when I don't only need right, I need people to recognize my existence. I'm a human being. Yeah. When you tell me since I was born until today that I'm stateless, yeah, and any Jewish person can come from Russia and go to the land and have full rights tomorrow, and I still stateless, and I speak Israeli and Hebrew and everything, and I am part of the land and I belong to the land, and this is discrimination. This system is criminal, and it's criminalizing me according to my faith and my race and that's the problem of the land. And that's what we need to change. It's not only the rights. I want to be recognized, my history, my narrative, my pain. And that's how I opened to Israelis and I started to accept them when I see that there are people recognizing my side of the story and not only theirs. That opened my heart and my mind to see their side too.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Let's hear from Jonathan.
Hey. So yeah, how should I go with it? I think I'm able to be here thanks to a process I started a few years ago in Tamara. Probably many of you know this place. And I felt like I was reintroduced with the word peace. And so first of all, I really want to thank you both. It's really inspiring to see you and hear you. So I feel like it's funny, Osama, you said like I seem angry or and you're afraid or whatever you felt with,
No, of your
things.
muscles, man.
Oh, got it. Thanks. Anyways, I felt like when I heard you speak, Osama, my heart was opening. And I feel like I'm first of all able to do it more in the past few years, but also it was the way you spoke, especially also the way the way you just recently said about addressing the pain and our narrative. So I felt like you did it while you were speaking, um, addressing our pain and our narrative and my roots. So thank you for that. And I noticed that I was more triggered, Rotem, when you spoke actually, and more yeah, my heart was less open, and especially when I was triggered when you said when you used the word genocide, and I felt like wow, that's going that's going too far, especially after what we went through in the Holocaust. That like we know what to compare. We know like what is genocide and what is not. And I'm wondering, like the platform you guys have is it's so influential, and I appreciate so much of what both you, Rotem, and Osama said. But then when you said that, I was like, whoa, okay, these guys have, instead of weapons, they have words, and using that word, genocide, was like, okay, maybe that could cause like the easy, very like, okay, Jews are Nazis kind of. Maybe I'm taking it too far, but like because the Nazis did genocide then. So I'm explaining like how it triggered me and how it could influence, but I'm also like curious, like, wait, maybe there's a blind spot even there for me, and curious to hear why is it you using that term instead of like war. Osama talked about war, and I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds right, especially after October 7th, when my cousin was murdered and so many of my Israeli companions were, yeah, murdered. So yeah, I'm wondering what's behind it.
Thank you, Jonathan.
You're so polite and so good, so nice, man. Thank you.
Yeah, cute. Habibi. And yeah, I would love to answer actually, because it comes up quite often from Israelis. So I will tell you a story. When we were in Germany, one day we were giving talks every day, and one of the organizers, he came to me and he told me, you know, I met this Jewish woman at the hospital a few years ago. She was like 90 years old, and she was a survivor of Auschwitz. She was in Auschwitz and she saw everything. And she told me that the numbers are not right. It's not
The
6.
Zionists are moving the numbers, using the numbers.
She said it's not 6 million. They invented it. It's like 1 million, maximum 2 millions. That's what the German guy told me. And I felt from him that he was trying to make the point that it's not 6 million and you are exaggerating, and it was just like 1 million. This was his point. Like, yeah, there was Holocaust, there was a genocide, but it's not 6 million, it's 1 million. And for me, honestly, I felt like I don't care. I don't care, and it's not you, a German person, to tell me if there were 6 million or 1 million. For me, the question right now is how we move forward, how we recognize each other pain, each other suffering, and move together forward. Now, it's very clear that the Palestinians see that what is happening now is a genocide, all of them. If we are listening to the Palestinians now, they all call it a genocide. For me, when I use genocide, I'm not comparing between the Holocaust and what is happening now. I'm just recognizing their suffering, their word or term that they choose, because I want to recognize their suffering, because I know that this is the way to move forward. Like, I don't want the German to come and tell me, you know, it's not really 6 million, it's 1 million. So for me, when I hear Israelis telling Palestinians, it's not a real genocide, you're just exaggerating, I think it's just, even if it's not the same, of course it's not the same, I agree with you, it's not the same, it's not the Holocaust, right? They are not burning us in camps, but people are being burned alive in Gaza. There are tens of thousands of people who are being killed in Gaza. So for me, if we are really interested in moving forward, in reconciliation, in finding solutions, I think what we can do, which will be productive, is actually to acknowledge whatever term they want to choose for it, because they are now dying. Of course, we are also suffering and dying, but I think there is a difference now between the sides, like the numbers and the level of the suffering and the death. And I think we, as those in power, those who have the power now, can also actually take this power and use it to move forward, to take responsibility over the situation. And once we will recognize their suffering, once we will say, okay, it's a genocide, even if it's not the same genocide, it's a different genocide, you chose this term, I recognize your term, because I'm interested in stopping the violence and in moving forward together. So for me, I think if we are really, as Israelis, what is necessary now is acknowledgement. And it doesn't mean that I say that we don't suffer, that we are not suffering. It's just saying, I want to end this madness. And all the Palestinians, they need the acknowledgement right now. This is what I...
Yeah, Jonathan, I just want to say that at the beginning, when I start to meet Israelis and listen to them, they told me about the Holocaust. And I tried to ask about the Holocaust in my community, because I don't know anything. People don't know. Some of them, they say it's lies. Some of them, they say it's a lot. Some of them say not only Jews. And I decided to go by myself and to see all the details to decide if the Holocaust happened or not. And I visited one concentration camp. And there I decided that I'm not the one who's going to search for people pain and what they have to call their pain and how much they suffered there. I just cried, and I saw one place and I stopped searching, because I don't care if they killed 1 million or 6 million or 7 million. They are souls, human beings. They were born to live. Children, kids, women, they haven't done anything in their life more than being Jews, and they were killed only because they are Jews. And for me, I stopped searching for the numbers and for the details, because this was distracting the human inside me to feel their pain and their humanity. I was looking for excuses to myself to dehumanize their pain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Marek. Oh, that's my dad.
Hi, Jules. Hi, Jules. It feels so good to see you all and to hear you all. And I just wanted to say that what I noticed in your narratives is the immense power of the national mythologies that really enslaves us all. I mean, globally, it's not limited to the Middle East. You see Ukraine and Russia, you see Iran, you see China, you see the United States, you see, the hatred between the Poles and the Russians. All that. It's always been like this. And my question to you is, do you feel that there is an opening now because of this monstrosity of this suffering now, that perhaps people, due to the electronic communication for the first time in our history, maybe there is some chance of realization that the state is not really the right form of existence, that the nation is a myth, that we are all neighbors, that we're all a family. And like you said, both of you said, you learned the languages of your neighbors in order to be closer to them. And in Europe, for example, we have a history of people killing each other, but also learning each other's languages. And it's such a mess. My question to you is, what do you think of a chance of re-educating ourselves and our children and our grandchildren towards abolishing those myths and building a real neighborly love that is the only energy that can build? Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for this question.
Yeah, I feel I pray for this day, yeah, national states, it's not sustainable, and we can see suffering and massacres and everything as the result of these structures. And yeah, it's human made, of course. And yeah, I hope we will find ways to create a different story. It's only about stories, right? It's just about creating a new story and then convincing humanity to believe in this new story. And yeah, maybe we can use the social media and the globalization to promote this story, and hopefully it will happen. But also maybe there is a deeper need that these stories are trying to fill, and we are still don't have an alternative to this need, which is community. I think globalization, it somehow broke all the old communities and the way we used to live for thousands of years. And now people somehow feel disconnected, lost. They don't have the support system their brains used to be dependent on. And now somehow the state is like playing this role of I am your safety, not the tribe. Now the state is the new tribe. And yeah, I hope we will find ways to create new tribes, or to create a new story where we can have bigger, I don't know what is going to unfold now, but for sure this idea of nation states, it's not sustainable, and it's very dangerous.
I would say I don't know what's gonna happen. I just, as I told Jonathan, it's important to change the education, the system of the education that we are working on. And we always, for example, teach our children how many people were killed in Second World War, or the Second World War genocide or not, or what happened in Gaza, genocide or what. And for me, I think we should direct to our education to how many people were silent during the Holocaust and that allowed the Holocaust to happen. And teach our children that when people are criticized and abused and killed, we shouldn't be silent no matter what. We should raise our voices. And for me, what I'm trying to reach now, I don't really know. I don't really know. I'm weak, I'm lost, I'm strong, I'm powerful, I'm everything. I just can't watch people dying and sitting there complaining whose blood is more holy than the other. I don't know what is the right thing to do. I'm doing this for my heart, for my soul, for both of our peoples. And I'm not sure if this is going to change today or tomorrow or afterward. I just, maybe in few years, it will change. And when my grandchildren will ask me what you have done when people were killing each other, when they will become smarter and reach peace, I will be honored to tell them I didn't participate in the hate. And I tried to find the light for me and for other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you both so much for bringing your humanity to these topics and to this online forum. Thank you really for your perseverance. I know you said you're doing this every day now for a year, and I can imagine it can be weary. And I hope today could also give you some energy to also see so much engagement, lots of people in the chat thanking you, and thank you those of you who came online and questions. I wanted to again post in the chat, we're going to wrap up now, but again, if you wish to contribute somehow financially or otherwise, you can follow Salt of the Earth on Instagram. There's a link tree that we'll post just now in the GoFundMe. And I wanted to also mention from my side, from ReCulture, we will be hosting a summit online at the end of January, and we're really focusing, it's called Fugitive Futures, and really to be focusing on these questions we're asking of what is the futures we can be creating from nonviolent ways, from alternative paradigms, from building community, and we're going to be having the final online release of our documentary, The Village of Lovers, about Tamara. Just mentioned, I think Dylan or Jonathan mentioned, and I know you all are connected also to Tamara Peace Research Village in Portugal. So if you are interested, you can also, Abby will post the newsletter. You can opt in to join our summit, and I'm so grateful really to the two of you for your willingness, your heart. I hope our paths cross again soon. I know you're in New York now, and yeah, very grateful. Thank you so much. If there's any
Thank you so much.
Yeah, any last words from you all, and then I think we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, maybe I want to say in the end, really, this gives me a lot of hope to see that we are moving. I know we are not going to change our narratives and our beliefs in one day. I'm just, encouraging all of us to try to find what's going on for ourselves and not be occupied by stories. And I want to tell everyone that only together we're gonna win. That's the only thing I can take from this war. Yeah, it's the only thing I can take, and I think it's for everyone. And we need to understand that is that all of us, not one tribe and not one side. Yeah, and I want to say that we are here to fight for everyone. We are here to say from the river to the sea, everyone will be and have been and should be safe and equal and free. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Don't lose hope. It will get better soon, inshallah.
Amen. 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 Today.